In 2017, he blew up the system. Now, can he keep it together? France's Emmanuel Macron, remember, had never run for public office before becoming president. And for a while, he seemed exempt from the crude reality of political horse trading. Yet now, the same Macron who reigned supreme when he smashed the big tent center-left and center-right parties 8 years ago seems to be running out of road in his second term. With his baffling decision last year to dissolve parliament backfiring miserably, an even stronger opposition ousting the 47-year-old president's second prime minister in under a year on Monday. Macron hoped that with Michel Barnier and then François Bayrou, he could stay in his comfort zone with a coalition that runs from traditional conservatives to the center. But Monday's vote at the National Assembly wasn't even close, a vote triggered to anticipate the bruising austerity budget battle still to come, not to mention this Wednesday's yellow vest-inspired day of protest. Beyond the guessing game of who Macron will pick next, is it about Macron himself, the leader who promised Jupiter-like strength from on high and who now has to make concessions, or a democracy that's no longer so unique on a continent rife with populist pressures and fragmented political forces? Today in the France 24 debate, can Macron do compromise? With us, French Senator representing citizens abroad, Hélène Conway-Mouret of the Socialist Party. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Also with us, Shannon Seban, municipal councillor in the Paris suburb of Rosny-sous-Bois from Emmanuel Macron's Renaissance Party. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation.
Thibault Musergue is the author of Post-Populism in French. Thank you for joining us from Rome.
Thanks a lot for having me.
And Matthew Dalton, journalist at the Paris bureau of the Wall Street Journal, where we've noticed a few comparisons between France and Italy and Greece in the last few days. Maybe we'll talk a bit more about that later. Thanks for being with us. Reminder, if you're on the go, you can listen to the show wherever podcasts are streamed. Presidential Palace says he'll name a new prime minister in the coming days. Emmanuel Macron to act fast in naming his fifth head of government in under 2 years. Emerald Maxwell has more.
François Bayrou leaves the Prime Minister's office for the last time as Premier and makes the short drive to the Élysée to hand in his resignation after his crushing confidence vote. The result marks a new crisis for France, obliging President Emmanuel Macron to search for a third Prime Minister in a year. His office said late Monday that he would do so in the coming days. Among the names circulating include some from the centre-left or centre-right, or a technocrat. The challenge for Macron is to find a consensus or compromise figure. No easy task with a divided parliament in which everyone has an opinion.
We have reiterated, of course, that for us it would be inconceivable for the president to make his choice by appointing a socialist prime minister.
The president should appoint a figure outside of politics who will not be the prime minister, but who will be tasked over the next 3 weeks with bringing together political party leaders 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Alternatively, Macron could call snap parliamentary elections, an option he has refused, despite calls for him to do so, especially from the far right, which would stand to make gains.
Either there is a prime minister who's capable of finding a way to avoid being censured when he presents his budget, or one that's not capable of finding a way. And in that case, we will put the question of the dissolution of Parliament back on the table.
Meanwhile, the hard left have reiterated calls for Macron himself to go. He has vowed to serve out his second term, which ends in 2027.
We will be submitting a motion of impeachment.
The stakes are high. France urgently needs to address a budget deficit that stands at nearly double the European Union's 3% ceiling.
At this point in time, Shannon Seban, first of all, I'm going to name a prime minister in the coming days. The words in French was dans les tout prochains jours, in the very coming days, like really shortly, but some even thought he'd make a statement this Tuesday evening. That didn't happen on national television. When do you expect to know the name of François Bayrou's successor?
The earlier, the better, because the French situation, the economic situation at the moment we cannot wait anymore. I mean, we cannot afford in France now to have the luxury not having a budget. And better a modest budget than no budget at all. So the earlier we will have the name of the future prime minister, the earlier he will be able to form his new government, and then we will be able to move forward, I hope, with the will of all the political forces of our country, whether they are coming from the left or from the right. So the earlier, the better.
So twice in a row now we've had, with this parliament that's splintered three ways, political heavyweights who've been around politics a long time. Michel Barnier from the Conservatives, known to viewers as the man who negotiated Brexit. Then François Bayrou, a center-right politician who's been in politics since 1980s, and he's been a known figure. What kind of profile would you like to see next time?
So, according to me, this is less a personal crisis than a systemic one. The fall of François Bayrou government is not an accident. It is the symptom of a political system reaching its limits. In France, as we can see it, the political system is now split into three blocks that does not want to discuss one with each other. The far left, the far right, and the centrist majority. And I'm really convinced that the problem right now is that France must definitely move from a political culture of confrontation to a political culture of coalition. Let's have a look at Germany. In Germany, coalition is a normal part of democracy, whether with the SPD, the CDU, or the liberals. In France, when you talk about coalition, when you talk about compromise, all political parties do think that this is kind of betrayal.
And twice Emmanuel Macron did not really extend beyond a little bit to the right, but not very much. Will he broaden out this time?
I mean, I'm pretty convinced that this is what he tried to do in the previous weeks, in the previous years. As you can see it, a few hours after François Bayrou decided to discuss about the budget, all the political parties in our country asked to a new presidential election, wanted to run again for the French parliament. That means a lot. That means that this is not about the budget. This is not about like finding solution to improve French daily life. It's all about personal interest. Let's have a look in 1986. François Mitterrand accepted cohabitation with Jacques Chirac, and it went well. So that definitely means that the real question for France at the moment, according to me, is whether we dare to invent a new model where the culture of coalition becomes normal, where the culture of compromise becomes something usual. We are at a milestone, I do think. So it's all about the efforts that we want to do in order to improve.
So quickly
French.
graduating to that culture of coalition.
Yeah, it's a political aspect.
And in common with reference to 1986, you had a socialist president, you had a conservative majority elected, a big conservative majority. The keys to the candy store were handed to Prime Minister Jacques Chirac then. Today, it's unclear. There is no clear majority. So what are you expecting from the president? What should he be doing?
Well, to draw the lessons from the past, indeed, I think it's important to see what worked in the past and maybe, repeat it. However, the cohabitation, they worked because the personalities that were in place were really true political leaders. There was indeed under François Mitterrand, first cohabitation, but then there was with Jacques Chirac and Lionel Jospin, who was prime minister. But I do not believe that in Emmanuel Macron's mind, who felt that he was going to build this
at the time...
Hold on, I'm just finishing that one. This big central right, where the right and the left was going to, be working together and so on. It's not the French political culture. I understand the Germans do it, but that's the way they've always done it. And I do not believe that you change a political culture just like that. It just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right that there is a kind of a short term, which is voting the budget. So we don't have time to kind of see, can we do away with the left, the right, and see that everybody is happy together in this big central block. It's just not working. It has been tried for the past 8 years, and it is not working.
What if you do like in Germany and you set it in stone with a platform that's written in writing?
But Emmanuel Macron has never indicated that he wanted to open to the left. I think he is fundamentally a right-wing person. He has not presented himself this way, but I think the policies that he has put in place for the past 8 years are fundamentally right-wing policies, and therefore is nominating right-wing people, with the rejection that we see now, both in the National Assembly, but also in the country. There is a kind of an anger, and I hope that it's not going to express itself in a violent way on the 10th and the 18th of September. The
10th is when there's this yellow vest style movement, and the 18th it's trade unions.
It's starting on social networks. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen, and that's what worries me most, because when the trade unions organize themselves, they have the security and everything is organized. They put, they ask the prefecture for the meetings and the marches that are taking place, but there it's very difficult to know who is going to march, where, when, and who is going to do it. And also, and we always know that, apart from those who march and are, there in good faith, there are those who come for other purposes.
So who,
fighting and breaking things.
So I'll ask you the same question that I asked to Shannon Sebon.
Yeah.
Who should Emmanuel Macron name as prime minister? What kind of a profile?
Well, somebody who is capable of putting the finances in order and who has the trust of the various parties. And I have some names in mind, people who could do the job. And I do not feel that today it is a problem of our institutions or the political parties or whatever. We're lacking political leaders like François Mitterrand, who was named earlier, Jacques Chirac.
So you want a political leader, not a technocrat?
We have had technocrats. We have had top civil servants. I mean, Madame Borne is a pure example of that. Not to say that she didn't do the job that she was given, but it is not, how can I say it? Having been a minister myself and having worked with top civil servants, it's just two worlds that need to come together and get the perfect decisions and the good text. But if you just have the one who is supposed to be the other, it just doesn't work.
Thibault Musergue, what does France need? Who does France need right now?
Well, there's several options. Italy has a long history of dealing with this type of crisis. And I can tell you that these days in Rome, I was trying to find the Italian or the French for Schadenfreude, but unfortunately could not find it in either language. But there is very much a feeling that, Italy was being criticized for not having long governments and governments that didn't last. And I think now we probably should have a little bit of humility and look at what the Italians have done in the past to work to work for a government when there was clearly no majority in Parliament.
Go ahead, Thibault Musergue.
Two ways. Sorry, yeah, sure. For me, there are two possibilities, considering that the centrist possibility is just not possible. We've tried two center-right coalitions that didn't work. A center-left coalition that doesn't work because there's not the numbers, and the Républicains will probably censor a socialist prime minister, if not now, then later. So there's two possibilities. One, technical government, sort of Mario Draghi or Mario Monti type of government. I don't see a personality right now that fits the description and that is capable of carrying, because you need a majority, so being capable of carrying the budget over the finish line. The last one that nobody talked about, and I understand that it's a big taboo, but it's to open up. Remember that Mario Draghi, when he got into government, he opened the government to absolutely everybody. Five-Star Movement, Lega, Fratelli d'Italia. Maybe that's the solution. Now, we're talking about, having a culture of compromise. So I would like to ask, for example, Mrs. Sebon, are you ready to open up the coalition to the Rassemblement National, get the Rassemblement National into government, or I think this is really a question that we all need to ask ourselves. And the question also goes to the Socialist Party for les Républicains, right? If you want to get a government, if you're serious about that, are you ready to enlarge the government to people that right now are outside the corridor sanitaire? I don't see any other way right now. And maybe the other way to do it is to have new elections in which there would probably clearly be a majority. Probably not the majority that a lot of people on this call would want, but that would be the other solution. But in any case, this, for me right now, it's the only solutions: either technical government or having an opening up to what we are still calling the extremes right now.
I will put the question to Shannon Sebon, but just one follow-up just to clarify for our audience. Thibault Muzier, you talk about what's called in French le cordon sanitaire. In English, the I guess you could say the Republican firewall, which is what we have in France. It also exists in Germany, where you don't do coalitions with the far right. You're suggesting that the only way is to break that firewall?
Listen, the firewall is off almost everywhere in Europe now. Germany is probably one of the few countries in which it still exists. Sweden, the firewall is down. Italy, the firewall is down. In Spain, there is a firewall with Vox, but the socialists have taken down the firewall with Podemos. So we are living a time in which the firewalls either are not working because there's just like too many extremes on both sides, right? Or too many marginal parties right now for it to work in the long run. So I don't see any other option. If you do it, the luck that we have in some ways that with Emmanuel Macron, we have someone who can be a sort of guarantor that things are going to work according to the institutions, right? That we don't end up in a sort of revolution one way or another, like what is going on in the United States right now. But yeah. I don't see any other way right now.
Shannon Sebon, you agree? You kind of need to extend it out to the far left, to the far right?
Definitely not. You know what's at the core value of our political right now is to find extremism, whether it is political or religious. So that means no national rally, no La France Insoumise. Especially because when you look at their values, it's absolutely not the democratic values that we would like to share. On the one hand, you do have with the national rally, a racist and xenophobia atmosphere that keeps going on inside the party. When you look at the atmosphere, when you look at some potential people that are working within the national rally, you do have still anti-Semitism, racism, and xenophobia among the political party. On the other side, the far left is absolutely not responsible. Their strategy only relies on chaos. And let's have a look at the multiple calls they are making in order to go to the streets, in order to instrumentalize some international conflicts in order to gain voters. Their strategy, both strategy, is not to help people in their daily life, is only to provoke chaos. And the second point I would like also to highlight is once you have a look at their economic program. On the one hand, the economic program on the far left rely on more than 300 billion euros deficit and additional expenses. On the other side, when you look at the economic program on the far right, is more than 100 billion euros in additional expenses. That means that their political program, their economic program, is not sustainable on a long-term basis. It's only based on populism. And what I think, on the other end, is that there is a chance for us, in order to move forward, in order to improve French citizens and daily life, if we do have with us the socialists, the moderate from the left and from the right, in order to build solutions, in order to improve French citizens and life and daily life. But it's only a question of a will. And
right,
if
so
there is a will, there is a pass.
Keep the Republican firewall, you say.
Yep.
In her speech at the National Assembly on Monday, the leader of the far right, Marine Le Pen, defended the current institutions, France's Fifth Republic, and the strong executive that had been laid out by General de Gaulle back in 1958. The leader of the National Rally stating it's not the Constitution that's the issue in France, but the leadership on offer. All right, and
to the torture of the French people, and by accelerating history to prepare for the great turning of the tide. IT technicians call it a reset, this action of reinitializing a machine choked by bugs. The real reset will be the resignation of the president, but this decision only depends on him, since he's been constitutionally elected for 5 years. Well, I'm not expecting anything from him on that score. Not everyone can be Général de Gaulle.
Matthew Dalton, your thoughts on Marine Le Pen as a defender of the institutions and a little bit trying to defend General de Gaulle?
Well, I think that the problem here is what Macron is trying to do. He asked for democracy when he called new elections
a year ago.
And the fact is that what he's been trying to do ever since 2017, when he was elected, is unpopular. It's largely on the economic front. France didn't want tax cut on capital, tax cuts on wealth. They didn't want his liberalization of the French economy, and throughout his term, he's been pushing that agenda that surveys have repeatedly shown is very unpopular. They didn't want the pension reform. The protests made that very clear.
And yet he got reelected after that pension reform.
Well, he by default he got reelected because he was running against Marine Le Pen. The same reason why he got elected in the first place, because he was running against Marine Le Pen. So Macron has been trying to do something that's unpopular since he became president and since he was reelected. And for some reason, he asked for democracy, thinking that the people would perhaps rally behind him, rally behind his vision for the economy. Big surprise, it didn't happen. So
what's going on? Is he misinformed, or was this part of some calculation looking forward?
Yeah, I don't know. I think everybody is very confused. It's the big mystery behind this whole mess is why, as you said in your introduction, the baffling decision to call for elections. I think he might have thought that that putting this question to the voters and the possibility of having the far right have a majority in the French parliament would be enough for voters to rally once again behind his party. And it didn't work. And I think, the other thing that's been going on is that there's been a real fracturing in the French political system. You have the far right that's grown much more powerful, the far left that's grown much more powerful, and the taboos behind voting for either one of those, in particular the far right, are disappearing. And so I don't think he tried to count on that. He can't count on that. And his agenda, it's not going to, the fear of the far right is not going to help him push through his economic agenda anymore.
And Conway Mouret, yet we still have that deficit, 6% as opposed to an EU average, which is half of that.
Yeah, and it was 3.2% in 2017 when he came to power. So, but I've known him a long time. I think, being president for the past 8 years, he has been isolating himself more and more with just a very small group of people that he trusts. That's his way of, interacting with others. And also with the strong belief that he's right. And it's true that he understands quickly, that he has a powerful mind. But
so is that a problem
he listens, and then he wants to prove that he's the one who makes the decision. And that happened, if you remember, in 2017 when, with the Général de Villiers, who was kind of fired in front of everybody. That is his style. He needs to assert himself. Well, that was in 2017. And since then, I think we've had that problem of somebody, and that does it with every president, who is more and more isolated in the Élysée Palace. I don't know whether it's, the system or whatever. But what I want to say about the far right, just to come back on that, I truly believe that we cannot forget what our history is in Europe and in France. And to pretend today that because Madame Le Pen changed the name of her party when she couldn't change her own name, and I think if she could have had, she probably would have done it.
Of course.
We just need to know where they come from, what they stand for. And what is in their program? The political program is anti-European. Mm-hmm. Okay, we can reassure ourselves until, or in Italy, it's not happening, she's not. But Madame Le Pen, I said the first thing she will do is to cut back on the European contribution of France. But where do we stand on the war in Ukraine? Where do we stand, within Europe when today we have this commercial war with the United States? I mean, and where do we stand with our, relationship with Russia? So, I mean, people are angry, and you're absolutely right in your analysis, the rise of the far right and the far left. But we need to ask the question, why are people moving to the extremes? It's because they do not feel that what is in place is actually giving them the answers they're waiting for or the life they're expecting to have. So they turn to those populists who promise on political programs that are okay when you're in opposition, but certainly are not to be put in place if they come to power. Because if France is doing badly today, on a financial point of view, with one or the other, they will be actually doing far worse.
All right, several news outlets here in France are stating that they have sources inside the presidential palace that say that we could have the name of the next prime minister before the top of the hour. So we'll see if that turns out to be true or not. Several news outlets are reporting that at this hour. That's just come in. So the fact that the announcement may come, as we were saying at the outset, sooner than later is also interesting. On what Hélène Conway-Mouret said about the president being isolated, is it because of the job, or is it because of the fact that here you have a political novice who had never held elected office before he became president? He'd been finance minister, but he'd never been elected before.
To me, to be fully honest with you, I mean, I do know President Macron. He's really clever, really smart, really reactive, and is connected. And it's unfair to tell that the situation that we do have now in France is only because of him. The reality is that when you are elected president twice, I must recall it, twice, that means that French people decided to vote for you. And you have your function, you have this position, which is the position of the president, and then you have the position of the prime minister and the French National Assembly and Senate. And all the political parties, whether you are a member of the French Parliament, whether it is the Assembly or the Senate, must also bear their responsibility. They have a huge role to play. I mean, we have to be fair. Who is voting the law? It's the member of the French Parliament. So they have to be responsible. I mean, we have a system which is highly democratic. But the fact is that at the moment, you have at the French National Assembly some people who have been elected by French citizens, not in order to build solution and to find solution in order to improve daily life of French citizens, but their goal is only to use the institutions in order to block the country. And that's the issue. When you are elected, it's to solve solutions, whether it is in education, in health, in security, in immigration, because this is one of the top priority on French citizens at the moment. It's immigration. We do have to build bridges. And I mean, I can see it as an elected official in Rosny-sous-Bois in Seine-Saint-Denis. I am working on a daily basis with people who are coming from the left, from the right, and we are accepting to make some compromise. Okay, we cannot have the perfect solution, but it's better to have a solution which is at the middle than no solution at all. And this is a urgent situation in which we are right now. The top priority in the coming days, in the coming week for France is to adopt a budget for 2026. I just would like to recall those who are listening to us that the deficit remains now at 5.8%, which is which is well higher than the EU average. We can definitely not afford the luxury of not having a budget. So each of us need to take their responsibilities, to accept to be responsible at some point for the general interest.
The general interest, let's go back a second. Election night, 2022. Emmanuel Macron's been re-elected, and as the panelists have said, it was a little bit by default. In the runoff against the far-right's Marine Le Pen, many voters holding their noses while casting their ballots in favor of him. And when he made his speech at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, he promised to bear that in mind.
I know that many of our fellow citizens voted for me today, not to support my ideas, but to block those of the far right. I would like to thank them and tell them that I'm aware that this vote places an obligation on me for years to come.
Thibault Musergue, has Emmanuel Macron lived up to that obligation?
That's a good question, but maybe you can ask also the people behind him. I'm not sure everybody who was behind him on that night would today be ready to vote again for him. I think this is also the problem. He is indeed an isolated man, and the center ground does not hold anymore. We're back into a left-right debate in which, unfortunately, I would like to say, the far right and the far left right now are in the advantage. I know that the center left and the center right are trying to get hold on the debate again, but the reality today, and I think the experience of the past 6 months has shown, is that there's no more center. The center does not exist. It has exploded.
No more a center? You agree with that, Matthew Dalton?
No, I don't quite agree with that. I think that I don't think the far left or the far right can win a majority of the French vote with their current platforms at all. I mean, I think that what you've seen from the far right, the RN, is their popularity has grown as they have tacked toward the center. Marine Le Pen, in 2017, her platform included exiting the euro for France. In 2022, she abandoned that position, and she did a lot better. The party did a lot better. So, you know, the far right in particular has really abandoned some of its more controversial positions in an effort to win a majority. And you know, Marine Le Pen, before her latest legal troubles, I would argue that she was the favorite to win the next presidential election. So there is I think there is a center within French politics. There are a group of positions that most people, that can attract a majority support from most French people. However, those positions don't include Macron's economic agenda, which he insists on pursuing, despite all evidence that most French people don't want it.
Most French people don't want it. And so we've had, again, these two prime ministers in succession that have been shot down by this parliament that's split three ways, perhaps even more when you see the different shades within the National Assembly of left and conservative. Yeah. When you compare with the United States, is this a sign that France's democracy is holding, that there are checks and balances, or is it a sign of a country that's broken?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a country that's broken. I think that actually, I mean, France is not actually under that much pressure, in my opinion, from financial markets to really take a decision. That the yields on the debt are still manageable. And much the same way the United States has really not come under a lot of pressure for all of its political chaos. So I think, you know, the markets at any rate still view both systems as strong, maybe as too big to fail. There's no place else to go for them other than investing in U.S. and French debt. I think that, you know, one advantage that France might have is that there's still, I think the center might be still stronger in France than in the United States. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, what Donald Trump has done in the United States is really pull the electorate, and in particular the Republican Party, to the right on many issues. Marine Le Pen, she's been pulled to the center. It's a different dynamic. I don't think that Marine Le Pen has the power over the French electorate, and in particular the right half of the electorate, the way Donald Trump has the power over the Republican Party now.
So, Hélène Calmet-Mouret, this harks back to what Thibault was saying at the outset of our conversation. You have a prime minister who comes from the far right and is coveting traditional center-right voters now. Is that what France is headed for as the political landscape once again gets reshuffled?
Just thinking that Emmanuel Macron didn't succeed indeed from an economic point of view to lead the country where it should be today. But he had in mind to weaken the traditional political parties, the trade unions, anybody who had kind of, a place. I mean, and the socialists and the Républicains were both weakened big time. His ambition was to think that if those Republican parties were to be weakened enough, they would actually be able to converge.
And he succeeded to a large extent. He did pension reform, he did rail reform.
That's why I'm saying that he succeeded. And in doing so, the extremes then grew, but without attracting those, indeed, that have these Republican values and want to defend them. So I do believe that the majority of French people are not in the extremes, that at the moment we're going through a political crisis. There's a lot of anger at what was promised, never delivered, or just the opposite being done to, what the French people kind of expected. But this is a political tension at the moment that doesn't have to translate itself in France falling into the hands of the extreme right. And I think if we did that, and I just finished a European tour, just because I'm working on a parliamentary report on which asks me to go and talk to our counterparts, our partners. They're extremely worried about us. And it's not the fact that we're changing our prime ministers. That happens in other countries. It's the fact that in 2027, they fear that the extreme right may indeed come to power.
Because it's a presidential system.
Not just a prime minister who, because the president is extremely powerful in France and will retain, until 2027, all the powers, okay? But having a prime minister, it's different from having an elected president. And if, Monsieur Bardella indeed will be maybe the candidate, if Madame Le Pen is not, if he came to power, it will be just a total change from a European perspective, the place of France in Europe and in the world, because they will just have a political agenda that will be totally different from what we have had so far.
2027, still a long ways away in France. You first have to name a prime minister. And again, we may have an announcement in the coming minutes. The French news agency AFP now also stating after those news channels that we could know the name within minutes of the name of François Bayrou's successor. And then, of course, there's what happens on Wednesday. This day of protest in the streets has been announced. Shoppers stocking up in supermarkets, like in the working class Paris suburb of Argenteuil, ahead of Let's Block Everything Day, is I guess how you loosely translate it. A Yellow Vest inspired movement started on social media, and we don't know yet the extent to which people will be staging protests on Wednesday.
We've increased everything related to cereals by 20%. We also pushed everything related to cakes and snacks, as well as everything related to breakfast. These are essential products for the shop.
All right, so more cakes and snacks. Are people treating Wednesday in your home constituency, which, like Argenteuil, is one of these working class suburbs of Paris, are they treating it as a home office day, or are they saying this is the beginning of something bigger?
No, I mean, to be fully honest with you, it's difficult to predict exactly what will happen. The fact is that this movement was triggered by the far left on the social media and so on. But what I would like to remind to those who are listening to us is that this movement...
I'm going to interrupt you because according to French news channel BFM, we have a name of a new prime minister. He's been the Armed Forces prime minister, Sébastien Lecornu, named as PM. Let's quickly go around the room for a reaction to that. It's not confirmed yet, so we'll see if that's confirmed. But we're also now we're hearing it from an official source. Now it's from the Élysée Palace, according to the Reuters news agency. Your reaction?
Good news. Good news because the nomination and the appointment of Sébastien Lecornu was really quick. So I'm really happy about that. That also means that the French president has decided to move forward very quickly because he is aware, as most of French people, that we definitely need to adopt a budget very quickly because the situation in France cannot afford to wait anymore. So I'm really glad of this appointment. I'm now expecting of all the political parties in France to be fair, to accept this appointment, but also to be opened in order to work all together in the general interest, which is the common life and the daily life of French citizens. That should be our absolute priority. Let's move forward. Let's forget about our personal calculation in order to be elected in 2026 or 2027, I don't know. Let's move forward in the interest
Let me go quickly around the
French.
room. Hélène Conway-Mouret, will your Socialist Party, how will they react to this nomination?
Well, it's a continuum. The same policies till the end, no change. I know.
Is the outgoing armed forces minister someone you can do business with?
Well, I can certainly because I have, I'm the rapporteur for the equipment of the French armed forces. So I do spend a lot of time with Sébastien Lecornu. From a personal point of view, he's a good guy. He's extremely talented. He's very political. He's not technical. He's political, and that's a good thing. But I think it's bad news. I think it's bad news, not because of his talents, and he has loads of them, because it's just a very strong signal that nothing will change until 2027. The same policies will be put in place, and it's going to be difficult. But I thought that President Macron liked M. Lecornu a bit better because to appoint him the day before the 10th, I think it's not very good for him.
Yeah, Thibault Muzelk, is this about getting a budget passed quickly? Or is it about having a prime minister ahead of a day of social protests so that not all the attention is on the president?
Well, I was just talking about opening up versus closing down, and I think we're getting the closing down version. So I would imagine that Mr. Macron is circling the wagons around the Élysée. That's probably a way to do that. Nothing to do with Mr. Lecornu. Is obviously a very competent person. I think yes. The other speakers have said it. But the problem here, once again, we're talking about a government that is going to be extremely restricted. And that is not going to last a year. Maybe it will go a little bit until the year after, but maybe we'll pass this budget. Who knows? There might be a miracle that might happen, but it's not going to prove a lasting government, and a government that is going to be at the mercy of any event, basically, because it is very, very, very far from having a majority. This in a period, as we know, a period of crisis for France. So I'm afraid this is not going to resolve the problems that France has right now.
Matthew Dalton, the official statement from the French presidential palace, I'll read it out to you. It says that Sébastien Lecornu, again, this is the armed forces minister, has been handed the task of consulting the parties to, quote, build the invaluable accords needed to make decisions in the coming months. Do you believe that he can prove Senator Conway-Mouret wrong and that the French can do compromise?
Well, if
Lecornu
was supposed to be doing that, what was Bayrou doing this whole time? Wasn't Bayrou supposed to be doing that? So I think that brings me to my point that it's not about the person, as far as I can tell. I think ideologically, Lecornu and Bayrou very similar. It's about what policies the Macron's party and I think what sacred cows are the different factions willing to give up to come to a compromise. In particular, I'm thinking about the pension reform. Is Macron's Is Macron himself willing to give up some pieces of the pension reform that cost him so much political capital to get a budget passed?
All right, and we'll see. The proof will be in the pudding. In any case, much more as this story is definitely still unfolding. I want to thank you, Matthew Dalton. I want to thank you, Eden Conway Mouret, Shannon Sebon, Thibault Musergue for being with us from Rome. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.